Today we're going to talk about past tense verbs. In particular, we're going to focus on the continuous tense, the past continuous tense. Now, learning grammar often begins by learning or with learning verbs. Why is that? I think it's important to understand why most grammars, or why it's suggested that you begin with verbs. And I'll tell you why. There's a hierarchy of importance in communication. And when we communicate or talk about events, things people did or things that happened where people witnessed it. So the action often is the centerpiece. So action verbs, obviously verbs denote or describe actions. And then next most important would be the nouns or the actors that are participating or leading the events or observing the events. And then adjectives, of course, are very important to describe more about the event, the action, or the actor. So that's probably third of importance. And then we have prepositions, articles, pronouns, and other aspects, these connecting or these little words that comprise sentences. But verbs predominate. And so we're starting with verbs. I'm not starting with present tense. I'm going to start with the continuous. So my approach to grammar is very, very clear, very simple. I focus on rules that are most relevant to speaking, because 95% of the people that I encounter on Instagram need or want to speak more fluently. They don't need to write in the first instance, they need to speak, or they want to speak. Now, in particular, the goal for this meeting is to discuss the three most important rules for spoken communication related to past continuous tense. So I'm going to focus on the three most important rules. And this is actually going to be hopefully a help for teachers. And I'll give you a spoiler now, one of the key ideas at the end of the live that I'm going to highlight is that you don't want to teach too much or try to teach everything in one session. It's better to teach a few things clearly than many things that are not so clear. I'm going to focus on the three most important instances of past continuous with spoken communication. Now, this slide is for context, because I'll be addressing past simple and present perfect at a future date. So there are three tenses that we predominantly or mainly use in the past: past simple, past continuous, and present perfect. Now, I've chosen to start with past continuous because past simple and present perfect are not so simple. They're actually a little bit more difficult because we have a lot more instances of uses of them. Past continuous, by contrast, has a few main instances, and it's sort of easy to get your head around, easy to understand, and move forward. So I've given you definitions of past simple and present perfect below. You can see those. For example, I studied English in the 4th grade. Studied English is past simple. Past continuous, I was studying English in grade 4, and emphasizes the duration. Or present perfect, I have studied English for 3 years. So 3 years to the present. All right, we're going to focus though on past continuous. And there are three instances, three main uses of spoken English, the purpose of spoken English. There are other forms that you use with writing or less common in speech, but I'm not focusing on those because my feeling is if you understand the three most frequent, then you understand 80 or 90% of the rule. So we're going to look at these three: an ongoing action in the past. I was eating grapes, so it was sometime in the past. Or the second instance, an interrupted ongoing action. So I was doing something and something interrupted it. So I was sleeping when my mother or when my friend arrived. So sleeping is this continuous action, and then my friend arrived. That's past simple. And then finally, parallel actions. I was doing something, my friend was doing something. So I was writing while she was dictating. So we have two parallel actions. So these are the three most common uses of past continuous. If we can understand those and the key words that go with those three, then we understand the past continuous and can feel confident using it. Now, if you have any questions, please write them in the box below, the question box, and I will get to those at the very end of the live. Make sure they're related to the past continuous if possible. All right, how to form past continuous. It's very simple. I was or I were something. I'm sorry, not I were, but was or were verb ing. I was sleeping, they were sleeping. So I, she, or he was, and then we have we, they, you, were. So it's very simple construction. Apologies, it should be I, she, he were. All right. So that's the construction that we will look at over and over. Was or were, ing verb. So we have a verb and we add ing to the end of it. I was sleeping, he was walking, they were running. All right, let's look at the uses in practice. Let's practice it. So the first or very common use, so I'm going to look at the three in order of frequency. In order of frequency. So perhaps the most frequent is a question. Often you use past continuous with a question that I'm going to look at. I'm going to look at 4 different questions that you might encounter in an everyday situation. Now remember, this is an ongoing action. There's no definitive end to it. In simple past, you have an end to the action, but not with past continuous. All right, so often in response to a question. So here's my friend's question. What were you doing yesterday afternoon? Past continuous. I was studying for an exam. So often with a question. Here's another example question. Why were you in the mountains? Your parents were wondering and worried. I was skiing. I was skiing. It's a question in the past. Now here's 2 more examples. Let's say your teacher asks, why did you miss the exam yesterday? I was traveling home from abroad. I was traveling home from overseas. Now notice the question is asked in the sort of simple past form, but we can answer that question in past continuous. Now here you're at a restaurant and a waiter asks, were you here last week? I think I saw you. And you answer, no, I was resting at home all week. I was resting at home all week. So the first common use of past continuous is in response to questions that about your past and of what you were doing in the past. All right, let's look at the second example. The second most common use of past continuous is when there's an interrupted action in the middle of what you were doing or what someone else was doing. We have this interrupted action, and if you look on the diagram, you can see that red line going vertical between the action. That's the interruption. To interrupt is to go in between the action. So 4 people were waiting outside the office when Sue arrived. So Sue arrived is a simple past. It's a concrete, definite action at a definite time. The waiting is the continuous. You started waiting before Sue arrived, and then Sue arrived, and you were still waiting. So 4 people were waiting outside when Sue arrived. And when is your clue that you have this interrupted action. When followed by past simple. We have a interruption in a past continuous action. Let's look at one more example. I was studying for an exam when my mother called. So I started studying this exam before she called. I was studying. She called, and I was still in the process of studying in the past. I was studying for an exam when my mother called. Now, you can reverse the orders of these. When Sue arrived, look at number 1. When Sue arrived, 4 people were waiting outside the office. No problem. We understand that the 4 people were waiting probably before. If it's a little bit unclear, you could move to the past perfect continuous, had been waiting. But when my mother called, I was studying. When my mother called, I was studying. And that, I think, is pretty clear. If you have any questions, write them down and I will try to answer them. Now let's look at the third most common use of past continuous. Now keep in mind with this one, with this interruption, we have the word when. When, that's our clue. In the third most common use, we have parallel examples and the key word is while. Not when, but while. While I did that, while I was doing this, they were doing this. So we have parallel actions, 2 actions in the past taking place at the same time. Dan, okay, so let's look at the example in the sort of picture. I was writing while she was dictating. All right. While. All right. Now, let's look at the second one. It was raining while I was jogging. That's number 2. It was raining while I was jogging. And look at the third one. While I was working in the garden, my dog was sleeping. Now, the first one is different. It offers us a past simple past simple verb. Dan burned his hand. While. So you also have that option. But after while, you have past continuous. Dan burned his hand, while he was cooking dinner. So he was cooking dinner. Sometime during the dinner, he burned his hand. So we have 2 options. So you can either have 2 past continuous in one sentence or a past simple and a past continuous. But after while, you always have the past continuous. So this is the second clue. In the earlier example, we have when followed by past simple. Then in this one, we have while followed by past continuous. So when we use when, in this example, if you see when, we know that before when is past continuous. And we know that after while is past continuous. And so this might take a few times of reviewing, and we're going to review it right now, actually. And you can also ask more questions. So let's take a look at key words that are associated with past continuous. I'm mainly going to talk about 2 for the sort of intermediate group because these are the 2 most common. And you can get by with these very well. While. While is used with sentences using 2 past continuous verbs or a past continuous and past simple. When is with sentences with a past simple and past continuous. So let's look at a few examples. Actually, what I'd like to do is, here's a little review. You can take a look. I'd like to practice a bit. So I'm going to have you practice this. We're going to do 4 practice examples. I'm going to put them on the screen and you're going to guess the answers. Are you ready? Here we go. Before we do that, I want to just do one more. And for those advanced students listening, that We don't have to use when and while exclusively. There are many substitutes for when and while and the use of past continuous. I've just given 2 examples. There are many others, but these are actually 2 common ones. At the moment the earthquake struck is past simple. Most people were going about their normal lives. All right, so when or at the moment is associated with past simple, but then the second half of the sentence is always past continuous. And if we look at while, remember we have past continuous on both sides often. And here instead of using while, we can use as. As I was swimming, my children were playing in the park. So we have variations of when and while, but I want you to associate them. When often is with past simple plus past continuous. While is often with past continuous both times, or past simple and past continuous. Now, what have we learned? We're going to do some practice exercises in a minute, so please wait. But what have we learned very briefly? Prioritize grammar rules. Prioritize grammar rules. So for the teachers, what does this mean? It means focus on the aspects that relate to speaking, except in special circumstances. Most students want to learn how to speak more than anything else. So focus or teach grammar to that effect. You don't have to teach all of the rules. And for students, don't try to learn all the rules. Focus first on the most practical and useful. And I'm telling you what the most practical and useful are today. There are other rules related to past continuous that you don't often use or that you use in writing. They're not important when you first start a subject. Once you know the first 3 rules very well, then you can go into more detail. But fourth point, don't get too detailed too quickly. This causes frustration. You don't learn things as well or as thoroughly, as detailed, as deeply. So make sure and pace yourself. Learn something really well rather than learning a lot moderately well. Step by step, we can do it. So I'm suggesting for teachers, limit what you teach to make it more practical and manageable. Don't teach everything you know about past continuous. Focus on the most important rules, and the most important rules are those that relate to speaking. I hope I'm clear on that. This is a common mistake that teachers make. I will tell you, teachers often don't teach to this way. They teach in a different way. They teach what they know best, and they teach what they like. But those 2 factors might not coincide with what the student needs most. And so it's important for teachers to put those aside and teach what is most helpful for students to begin speaking. All right, let's practice 4 examples. I'm going to let you interact. So I want you to look at the first one and you decide which one it is, past continuous or past simple. I'll read it. I'll read both and you take a minute to try to have your answers ready. While he was taking a bath, while he took a bath, Archimedes discovered scientific principles. Think about it. Number 2, when Edward Benedictus, a French scientist, worked in his laboratory, he dropped a glass bottle and invented safety glass. Actually, I just want to look at number 1. I just want to look at number 1 for the moment. Who has an answer for number 1? I will tell you, while he was taking a bath, Archimedes discovered. So past continuous after while. And here in this case, we have past simple. I want to skip the second one and move to these two more examples. So take a look at these two examples. Columbus arrived in America while he was trying or while he tried to reach the Far East. And number two, Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin by accident as he was looking or as he looked at some old experiments. So which could those be? Take a look. All right, number one, the first one. Columbus arrived in America while he was trying to reach the Far East. So he was trying. In the middle of this attempt, he reached or arrived in America. And number two, Fleming discovered, past simple, as he was looking. So he was looking, and during this looking, he discovered penicillin. So he was looking at old experiments, and in the middle of that, or in the process of that, while he was doing that, he discovered penicillin. All right. I hope that's clear. We can discuss more. We can in questions and answers. I'm going to look at questions and answers now, but let me just say, I'm going to upload this video to YouTube. So if you have a friend or who you would like to see this, or if you arrived late, you can watch the whole video on YouTube. And finally, I go live every Wednesday at the same time. So the time that you have on your watch, 25 minutes ago, is when we start. All right, I'm going to look at questions now, and let's see if we have any. All right, now let's see here. That's interesting here. This is an interesting question. Is it a must that past continuous tense is combined with past, I think you mean past simple. No, when you use while, you can use both. Or if you have, so while I was swimming, they were jogging. Or if someone asks you a question, what were you doing yesterday? I was studying. You can use past continuous with past simple when you have an action and an interruption. So while I was sleeping, the phone rang. Rang is past simple. Hello, Uzbekistan. Hello, India. I will look at should, would, could. A lot of people are asking about should, would, could, modal verbs, conditionals. I'm going to talk about all of those in due process. So it will come in a few weeks. I'm going to talk about those. I know it's important for a lot of people. All right. All right, so some people are, here's a good question. I know I have a lot of new beginners that are following me. If you're a beginner or a pre-intermediate, my advice is to get a beginner grammar book. Start studying the grammar. Start with the verbs in the present tense, not the past, in the present. And also, while you're studying grammar, basic grammar, begin to speak English. That's why we have these language exchanges. I made a post today, a language exchange post, so that you can begin speaking and studying. This is how it works best. Don't study grammar in isolation of speaking, and don't just speak to the neglect of grammar. You need them both so you understand the theory and the practical. You need both elements. All right. Good. Very good. I will look at conditional sentences. Good. Very good. Lots of good answers here. I see answers on the test. Very good. Hello, Iraq. All right. All right. That's right. When and while. Very good. I'm looking for other questions. And I'm not sure I have any more. A lot of answers to the question, to the examples at the end. Very good. Very good. Now, someone has mentioned past progressive. You can say past progressive or past continuous. That's fine. All right. Very good. I will record this and upload it to my YouTube account. All right. Very good. I think we've got it. Lots of good answers here. You got most of them correct. Someone's asked, do you have a YouTube channel? Yes, I do. It's the same name. You see it here. It's the same name as my Instagram account. All right. I think this is it. All right. Thank you all very much. It was a very good meeting. And I will see you all in 1 week. And we're going to look at another past tense, either past simple or present perfect. I think past simple. So join me as we go through all the verbs, including conditionals and modals. So I'm looking forward to these discussions in the coming weeks. Have a great evening or night or afternoon, and see you soon. Bye-bye.